Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Think and Grow Rich MasterMind Live. My name is Dr. Peter A. James, the high performance coach, and I want to welcome you to another Saturday morning edition of this phenomenal show that peruses around this phenomenal book, that dives into this phenomenal chapter of Chapter 5, Imagination today. Excited to have you all with us. I want to immediately bring on my distinguished host who can help me here week in and week out basis. Let's start off with the leadership strategist, Galen Bingham. Galen, good morning to you, sir. How are you doing today?
Absolutely. I heard you say phenomenal 5 times, and that's absolutely appropriate because this chapter really does get to the engine behind your ability to think and grow rich. Because one of the phrases that I've gotten locked into here recently is that people will never grow beyond their ability to think of themselves in a certain way. So this chapter, this principle really does get to the core of that. I can't wait to jump in. We got an outstanding guest and would love to get her perspective on how can people expand their perceptions of themselves so that they can think and grow rich. Let's jump into it.
Galen, I'm going to start it out with this. If you can dream it, it can be done. What are your thoughts on that statement right there?
That's it. That's
really it. And if we really can embrace that phrase right there, we would there's the possibilities are endless. So when I think about endless possibilities, I got to bring in our fearless leader, Galen, Ann McNeil. Ann McNeil, good morning. It's good to see you today. You're looking good.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Always the master builder, helping to build stronger and better lives and businesses and now communities with the power of the workshop of my mind. And I want to encourage all of our listeners. First of all, thank you, uh, my friend, excuse me, Dr. Lambert, for being here. But today, as we talk about the power of the imagination, this is a phenomenal, and I know we say this every single Saturday, but this principle, it's all in the mind. So we're just talking about now, if you can see it, you can be it, but you first must see it in your own imagination before you can even have the desire to actually have the action. So I'm excited about getting this chapter started, and we'll just share with our audience what Napoleon Hill says and the fact that your imagination is literally the workshop wherein are fashioned all plans created by man. And the impulse of this desire that you have is given shape, form, and then action through the aid of your imagination. So let's get this party started. I'm excited.
So, Ann McNeil, I want to ask you to drop another gem on our audience who are listening for sure. This morning pre-show, before we even got started, we looked at this title that we look at every week, Think and Grow Rich. And there's
Right.
something about this title that we often spend time on think, we often spend time on rich, but you introduced something here that kind of shifted the narrative a little bit this morning. Do you mind sharing with us, please?
Absolutely. In preparation for the show today, I was rereading the chapter again. And I realized for the first time, yes, first time for me, that the power we talk about thinking, so we do that. Then we talk about being rich, the six keys. But I just realized today the imagination power is in that middle word that we never really talk about, and that's grow.
Mm.
Because you see, it is the growing of our imagination, our self confidence, our self image, our vision of ourselves that allows us to become richer and richer and richer and richer, and not just in money, but in every single area of our lives. And so it is another rebirth. And I talked about the fact that when I started reading the book the first time in 1979, it was allowing the book to read me, that was empowering me to think and grow rich. And so this whole grow portion of the title of the book, I think for me, is another chapter, no pun intended, but another chapter. And it's my growth that's allowing me to become richer in every area.
Nice. Very, very nice. It's good stuff. And I think that's what we needed this morning to get this momentum rolling. I see that the chat is coming in from Facebook Live. It's also coming in from YouTube. Those of you who are watching, welcome to the show for sure. Please continue with your comments. Please consider your questions as we bring on our guest this morning. But before we do, I want to introduce a phrase, a sentence from this book in chapter 5. Those of you who have it, Think and Grow Rich, will put a link to the book in the comments section of both Facebook Live as well as YouTube to ensure that you can secure your own copy. But let me introduce this sentence for those of you God-fearing people out there. God seems to throw himself on the side of people who know exactly what they want if they are determined to get just that. That is specifically a quote from this infamous book, Think and Grow Rich, this phenomenal book, Galen, Think and Grow Rich, this morning. God seems to throw himself on individuals who have this great imagination and would like to see it through. Is that you? So without further ado, I'm so excited to bring in our special guest this morning, Dr. Esther Lambert. Esther, good morning to you. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Dr. Peter. I am great. Good morning, Miss Anne and Galen. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you so much for having me on this morning.
Esther, we're so excited to have you here. We want to dive a little bit immediately into your history, but even before that, we got to ask a question that we ask all of our guests. How and when were you first introduced to this great book?
Okay, so I was introduced to this book in January of 2020 by Miss Anne McNeil. I went to one of her conferences. One of my clients suggested that I go see her. He told me like 2 nights before the conference. And I bought my ticket. I guess he sold me so well on Anne and all that she has to offer that I went online that night, bought my ticket, and the next day I was in Atlanta. And at the end of the conference, Anne came and brought me this book that I have. I had her autograph it, and it's been a journey, and it's one of those journeys that never ends.
It is never-ending journey, and I love how Anne McNeil says it all the time. The book begins to read you. And Galen, this book that we dive into on a regular basis, it is phenomenal. It's unique, but the imagination chapter, which is one of 13, of course, provides a unique perspective overall. And might you have a question for Esther first, or maybe even you want to dive into some of these steps, if you don't
Yeah,
mind?
yeah, I was just gonna say. I mean, it'd be easy for us to jump into the conversation because this is absolutely, I think, something that she's going to be able to help us with. But the thing that I really like about this philosophy or the system is that it is a philosophy. It's not just an idea. It's not just an isolated thought. There's a connection to a grand approach to being successful, or as I like to say, how do you have success on purpose? And so I'd like to go ahead and go through the 13 steps. Let's take a listen to see what they are, and then we can see how imagination fits in as part of that network of principles. Let's go ahead and roll the tape.
Number 1 is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step 2 is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step 3 is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number 4 is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the MasterMind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number 5 is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step 6, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the Wild Wild West days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical, but what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
All right. Well, there you have it. There you have it. And so now you see how this connects to the entire network. And so I'm just really excited to learn from our guest this morning. And I'd love to go back to Dr. Peter's original question. How did you start not only learning about the book? We know that it was introduced, like most of us, through Miss Ann McNeil. But what was your all in moment where you said there's something to this, because when I leverage these principles, they seem to give me results as opposed to when I don't leverage these principles?
So I think my buy-in actually came from the self-confidence formula that, and I see Anne's expression because that's something that I remember when I started reading it, it didn't make that much of an impression on me, but as I developed this daily practice of repeating the formula to the point where I can, if you wake me up at midnight and ask me what's number 5, I can tell you what it is. So based on that buying, I started really getting into the book, and so it, as Anne says, that book reads you, so it reads me, and it's like I mentioned earlier, it's a journey. So I'm basically a student of the book.
Love that. Love that conversation overall. And listen, before we bring Anne McNeil in there, Esther, because we know probably you and her could chat all day long about this book. Tell us about your journey, if you don't mind. Where maybe a little background on who Esther Lambert is and what you're doing now a little bit. And maybe if you can interweave Think and Grow Rich into that a little bit, that would be helpful for our audience.
Okay, so let me start by saying I thought I was going to be talking when the conversation started about me becoming a guest on this program. I thought it would be about faith, but then I realized that there are no coincidences in life, because imagination. I think that you have to have an imagination before you have faith. I think that as soon as humans start learning words, our imagination starts developing. And as a child, I had to develop my imagination, because we grew up I'm from Jamaica. We grew up in an environment where we had no electricity growing up. We had no running water. No, not because we couldn't afford it, but the infrastructure was not there. So, especially in terms of not having electricity, we did not have television. So, books were our friends. And we had to use our imagination to entertain ourselves, basically. And I remember at nights, I'm from a big family, and the village where I'm from, we call it district. Everybody is, if you're not related, you're still related, because you have to call everybody aunts and uncles and cousins, depending on their age. So at nights, when we didn't have anything to do, as kids, we would actually have our own variety shows. We built our stages, and we definitely had to perform because we had judges. And you dared not go up on that stage and do anything that was not really up to speed. So our imaginations had to be developed. We also did not have, we got one toy during the year. So we got our toys for Christmas, and within a few days our brothers would destroy our dolls. So we had to create our toys. So our imaginations were developed exponentially, I would say, as a result of those. I don't call them conditions, I call them opportunities.
Love that. Love that story. Yeah. So Anne McNeil, I'm going to bring you into the conversation as Esther continues her journey a little bit. And any questions for Esther relative to this journey and Think and Grow Rich?
Oh, absolutely. And we talked about this a little before the program started, Esther, because we actually met when you came to Atlanta for our National Association for Black Women in Construction annual meeting. And your client, was a client indirectly for us in the construction industry. And of course, for those of you that know me, No, I send all of my information out to everybody. Marketing, not a good idea. But anyway, it works. Done is better than perfect. And this is an example of that. My question for you, though, is this: when you begin to literally write your affirmation, your self confidence formula as a part of our Clarity Mastermind. And thank you for becoming a member of that. And we're going to ask Tia if she would put the link in the chat for those who may be listening in that would like to also have a better quality of life in terms of increasing their own self image. Can you share with us the impact that this exercise has on your business? Because we're talking about the power of the imagination. And we also talked earlier before the show started, the fact that if you can see it, you can be it. And just because we are small in the construction industry does not mean we have to think small. So, can you share with our audience how you've been able to use the power of your imagination through your exercises of the self confidence formula in your business?
Oh, absolutely, and thank you for that question. So, I think one of my issues was I don't believe I had enough confidence as a business owner, and so I kind of boxed myself into one area. But because of this exercise every day, I have developed the confidence to move out of my comfort zone. I am I have no problems in reaching out to new opportunities nowadays. As a matter of fact, right now I am thinking of branching out. Not thinking, I'm actually in the process of branching out into another area of my business because I am a professional project manager, and I spent a lot of time preparing myself to be a successful project manager, as well as someone who helps to develop processes and to bring changes to organizations. So I'm actually in talks with a potential client to help them to develop their processes and to bring changes into their organization. So I'm really excited about that, and it is something that the self-confidence formula has helped me to develop.
Well, Peter, if I may, can you go back and share with us the name of your business and what you actually do for your clients? Because I know we have lots of people listening now and in the future, and you never know, this show may be the show that they're looking for to hire someone that do what you do.
So my company's Corporate Project Services, and we are headquartered in Miramar, South Florida. We also have an office in Palm Beach County, and we are here to help you to develop your processes, as well as to help you to use the technology that's available, because as you know, technology is driving how we do business nowadays. So my website is corproserve, corproserv.com.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Good stuff, Esther. And it sounds like even, I'm going back here because I'm thinking about what you just said a little bit as it relates to confidence. And you made a statement that said, when I first started my business, I did not have the confidence. And what I heard from that also is that confidence is in ourselves, it's in our minds. So speak to that as you dove into the confidence formula, as you had just imagination for this business here, and how that process evolved, even from maybe the repetition of the self-confidence formula, if it's the affirmations, whatever the case may be. How did you see that evolve over time, and maybe an example about what that looks like in your business today?
Sure. So I have been in business since 2006, and I've had some excellent clients. I've worked on some really big projects. But one of the issues, a part of my experience is that I work with engineers, and engineers are very special people. If you are not an engineer, or if you don't work with engineers, you don't understand. But engineers, there's a masculinist thinking process. So if you're not an engineer, then you don't have the voice that that represents your abilities, unless it's an engineer who thinks outside of the box. So what the self-confidence formula has done for me, and it's what you put out into the universe, because now I'm meeting engineers who are in sync with what I do. They are open to changes that I have to offer to help them to improve on processes that they do. So that's I think it's a synergy of how I see myself, how I use the self-confidence formula on a daily basis. It actually is inviting people into my world who I probably would never have met had I not been involved in it.
I love that, Esther. You put it out into the atmosphere, you put it out into the universe, and then it becomes that synergy. I'm using those words that you just used because they really resonated with me. And Galen, I got to ask you, what are you putting out into the atmosphere? What type of synergy is it providing for you as I bring you into this conversation?
Yeah, I keep thinking about, as I shared earlier, something that I just came across, and it says that a person can never rise above their vision of themselves. And I think that ties in directly with something that Napoleon Hill says. He says that man's limitations within reason lies in his development and use of his imagination. So, back to this conversation, how have you noticed that your success has been accelerated or limited by your use of imagination? Tying back into what Napoleon Hill said.
Oh my goodness, my imagination has been the driving force behind my entire life, actually. As a matter of fact, I believe it started with my parents, because my parents did not have any parents. So basically, our family started with them, and they had to use their imagination. My mother tells me the story of my dad. She said one day she came home from, I don't know where, and she saw my dad actually digging out this huge, like he was about to start this huge foundation on his land. And she said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I'm preparing to build a very big house by their standard for my family." And so that imagination was carried through to their children. They had high expectations for themselves and for us, and they passed it on to us. And as a result, that took me from Jamaica to the United States, not just me, but my brothers and sisters. And it has helped us in our careers as well as our businesses.
Love that. Thank you. Love that story there, Galen. And Galen, can you repeat that quote again for us, please?
Yeah. People can never rise above their image of themselves.
Yeah.
And so for me, that means that, and again, going back to Think and Grow Rich, everything begins with an idea. And you have some people that will be so convinced of their limitations, they will actually argue with you. These are my limitations. How dare you suggest that there's something beyond these limitations? And my work as a coach is about helping them to see that there's something beyond the limitations that they've put on their lives. And so again, the quote is, people will never rise above their image of themselves. So if you want to be something greater, you've got to think of yourself as being something greater.
Yeah. And those of you who are watching, what is the image you have of yourself? What is the future image you have of yourself? And then the follow on to that is, what are you beginning to do to accomplish that image? Right? What are you putting out in the universe? But then also, what are you beginning to put into practice? And as we've been mentioning over and over in this show today, that this Think and Grow Rich is a great book to to become involved in this process overall. Esther, so I want to go back to you and your story, of course, and your journey, as you've been mentioning over and over again, and ask you a little bit about your business a little bit more in depth, how you have seen it. This is now, it goes back to what Ann McNeil was saying a little while ago, how you may have seen your business since 2006 grow. Because we're not just thinking and we're not just trying to become rich, we're thinking and growing rich. So my question to you is, how has your business evolved, and especially in light of this phenomenal text that we look at every single week?
Okay, so in tying imagination with purpose, one of the things that I am basically marrying now is how do I see what's my real purpose in life, and how can I use my imagination to marry my business with my purpose, my definite purpose. And so I am seeing my business as a conduit, if I may, to marry my love for business with education. I think my definite purpose is to educate. And so the trajectory of my business is moving it from just providing services to educating my clients, and to think differently. And as a result of that, I'm seeing my clientele expanding from where it was to simply, it's not simply providing project control services, to helping them to change the way they do their business processes. And as a result, I am on the cusp of getting additional clients as we speak.
I like how that sounds there, Esther. You're on the cusp of getting additional clients. I love that. I love that. Even if it's not in place, it's an image, it's a vision that you're seeing in place. So kudos to you for that, for sure.
And if I may,
please, yes.
It's not just imagination. I'm actually in negotiation right now.
Thank you for clearing that up. This is not an imagination or a dream, for that matter. This is happening as well. But I will say, even before that, Esther, you dreamed it, you imagined it, and now it's coming to fruition, correct?
Absolutely.
Good stuff. Bringing Ann McNeil back in, Esther, and I want you to tell us a little bit about the power of the mastermind. Right? And the power of having people around you that you can bounce ideas off of, that other mind that is in addition to yours as well, that is so beneficial. And then also understand that you were part of this year's annual meeting. So can you tell us a little bit about that experience, Esther, as well as I bring Ann McNeil in?
Oh, sure. One of the things I do have conversations with myself, and I'm not crazy, by the way. But one of the things I have purposed in my mind is that I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. And so it was on that basis that I started when you put things out in the universe, it answers you. And when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And so I was ready to do something differently. And I met Anne. And as a result of that, I got involved in the MasterMind group. And earlier this year, we all met. Galen was there, and we also met virtually. Peter, and you were a part of that. And we are tasked with doing our annual plan for the year, and Anne takes that very seriously, and as a result, all of us buy into it, and we actually do this plan. We update our plan. It's I align it with a project management plan because it is really our project for the year. We develop our scope. What do we want to accomplish? We set ourselves a timeline, and of course, we want to get rich. So there is a cost that's associated with it.
I like that. Anne McNeil, that being said, can you come in and have that conversation with us about the importance of others, the importance of a mastermind, and maybe that would segue nicely into our annual meeting that we hold near and dear.
Well, I want to go back to what Dr. Lambert said about the emphasis that she put on Anne takes that very seriously. So I could not have said that any better myself. So since she teed that ball up for me, you can take it either way you want if you're a basketball player, Galen, we're still waiting on that story, or if you're a golfer. I would be remiss if I did not remind our audience that there are two types of imagination as we talk about the annual meeting, and as we talk about a plan for your life, and as we talk about the fact that many of us invest more time planning a vacation than we do a life after retirement. Two types of imagination. Napoleon Hill says that the first type of imagination is synthetic, and that is when you take an old idea and you know, change it up and you come up with a new idea. And I like to use the example of Cirque du Soleil, ballet and circus. Who would have ever thought bringing the two of those together and creating a phenomenal experience for the world, something for the entire family? But then you have creative imagination. And he says that the creative imagination is where you are communicating with the infinite intelligence and it's communicating back to you. And it comes in the form of hunches, inspirations. And I'll use Esther as an example. Esther had a desire for a greater quality of life and really did not know how, what, when, where. She had this hunch. She had this feeling that she needed a connection. She wanted to take her business to another level. And by doing so, she would take her life to another level. And then she got a call. That was the creative imagination at work. But see, what Esther did, many of us don't do, she acted. She didn't say, oh, well, I'll wait till she gets back, Miss McNeil, and I'll communicate with her and make an appointment, take her to lunch, breakfast. No, she said, no, I'm buying that ticket right now. I'm going to act on my creative imagination. And so that is my tee up for the annual meeting. The annual meeting for the International Mastermind Association, for those of you that are looking for a connection and a system and a process and a better quality of life, not just for yourself, but your family and friends, co-workers alike, join us in January at our annual meeting. We're going to put the link in the chat, or you can go to Eventbrite and just search Think and Grow Rich annual meeting. You can also go to the International Mastermind Association.com website. But regardless of what you do, act now. Don't wait, because what we do is we set goals in 10 areas of our lives: spiritual, family, financial, health, education, business, recreation, creativity, civic, and of course, I'm missing one. So somebody can help me with that later on. But I say that to say, to also mention that January 7th and 8th, 2022, we will be at the Embassy Suites in Boca Raton off Yamato Road. And you can go to www.internationalmasterminders with an s.com and get the details there. But we set our goals for 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And right now, personally, I'm in my 40th year. And Esther, like I said again, thank you so very much for the emphasis that you place on that, because I do take this very seriously. Because in my 40 plus years of doing this, I'm realizing that many of us have these plans for our businesses. We have a mission and a vision for business. We have strategic plan for business. We have a team of people for the business, but not for the life. Here, we encourage every single one of us to have a mission for your life. And what about that family of yours? Do you have a mission statement? Where's your vision for your life? Or what about that family of yours? Do you have a mission for the family? What about those plans? And I'm going to do this again so I can get them right. And I write this every day. So, plan for spiritual, family, financial, health, education, personal development, your business, your business and or your career. It can be the same, it can be different. But your recreational, your civic, and your creative area, all 10 of those, we encourage you to set goals in. And so, Peter, that's the story about the annual meeting. And I do, yes, for every single one of you that come, I ask you, I'm waiting for that smile from Galen as it is coming. It's coming. There it is. For those of you that's listening on podcast, he's now smiling, because if you show up and you don't have a report, even if this is your first time, we have a survey for your life that you have to complete outside the door before you come in. Because if we let you inside and you don't do it, you may never have an opportunity to look at every single area of your life and check off where are you. And from that survey, set your goals for the next year. So, Galen, I don't know if you want to talk about your experience since we're on this subject. I love your story and the fact that the next time you showed up, you had your report in your hand.
Oh my gosh, it is definitely a source of conviction, right? Because the first time I came, I felt really good about what I was coming in, what I was going to be talking about, and just the fact that no, there's a prerequisite. You can't just show up and talk about your life. You need to have it in writing. And there is always something about a plan that meets reality, right? And so the reality is you've got to put that structure into achieving these goals that you say that you want to achieve. And the annual meeting and that annual plan is definitely a tool in that direction. One thing I wanted to talk about, though, is I wanted to come back to something that Dr. Lambert said. She said that, she talks to herself and, don't judge me. But I'll tell you, Susan Scott, who's the author of Fierce Conversations, she says that all conversations are with myself, and occasionally they include other people. And if you believe that, as I do, that all conversations are with ourselves, my question is, what are you saying to yourself? Are you limiting your possibilities by the words that you're saying to yourself? And the story that Miss Ann that you talked about earlier, I got into this YouTube black hole yesterday, and I came across this video of Allen Iverson, who is Hall of Fame legendary point guard, Philadelphia 76ers. But he talked about when he first came into the league, he had always idolized Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was his poster on his wall. And I think the phrase when he was coming up and when I was coming up was, I want to be like Mike. So he came up wanting to be like Mike. And the first time he played against Michael Jordan, he had, Allen Iverson had this patented move, a crossover move that he just worked on his entire career, his entire life. And he said that if ever he wanted to If ever he had an opportunity to play against Mike, he wanted to try his move against the best, and that was Michael Jordan. And so their first interaction, he tried his move and he just crossed Michael Jordan up, and Michael Jordan like fell out of character and almost tripped over himself. And Allen Iverson made the move and scored the shot. And when they finally had a conversation, Michael Jordan said, "Hey, I thought you said I was your idol. If I was your idol, you wouldn't have done me like that." And Allen Iverson's response in this interview, I thought, was very telling. He said, "Hey, look, I had always dreamt of using this move against the best, and Michael Jordan just happened to be a victim that day." Right? So his imagination was not limited by the fact that he really admired this guy
Mm.
and thought to himself, well, I can never do this against my idol. His imagination said, I am the best at this thing, and I'm going to put this thing up against anyone. And whoever happens to come into this space, they're just going to be a victim of my imagination. And so that really caused me to go back to what Dr. Lambert said and what Susan Scott said. What are you saying in those conversations that you have with yourself? Are you reinforcing the limitations, or are you saying, this is my thing, I was created to be the greatest in the world at, and anyone else that comes into this space, they're just going to be a victim of this thing that I've been given?
Peter.
Love that. Love that, Galen. What
Yeah, Peter, I'm not sure if you
conversations are
can.
you all having with yourselves? And McNeil, you were saying.
Yes, listen, this is about sports and I'm a golfer. So, yes, Galen, you just teed the ball up for me. I had not planned to go here, but you just reminded me of the fact that not only what are you saying to yourself when you talk about your imagination, but where are you saying it? And when you said that, I said, "Oh, I have got to pull out this book." I wrote this book called The Daily Date with Myself, and we're going to put the link in the chat for those of you that's interested in having a place to write what you're saying to yourself. And the book is a journal, and what I basically started doing, I would journal my thoughts. I'm talking to myself, going to Galen's tee up for me, right? And in journaling my thoughts for years, I began to realize my thoughts started taking form, and they were becoming categorized in what I'm thankful and grateful for. And I would write a couple of things every morning. And then as I would think about my day, my thoughts began to go toward opportunities. What did I want to do today? What's my plan for today? What opportunities do I want to go after? And then I'm going to come to you, our awesome guest, Dr. Lambert, and talk about that $1 billion idea that came out of this process and that came out of the pages of this book. And I would ask my mind to give me 10 ideas every day, 10 opportunities. I might get to five, I might get to seven. And the more I did this year after year after year, I wouldn't move until my mind gave me 10. And then I would continue on and write in this journal. And over the years, the journal became, I realized that it's actually a date that I'm having with myself. And I look forward, and for those of you that are single and married, you should consider having a date with yourself. Yes, however often it works for you, but for me, it's every day, first thing in the morning. But anyway, so I would do this exercise. And from reading the book, many of us have read the chapter where the story goes about the formation of the U.S. Steel Corporation, where Schwab did $1 billion dinner speech. And in reading that years ago, I came up with the idea of doing $1 billion luncheon because I had $1 billion clients, and I would go to lunch with my $1 billion clients. And being the founder of the National Association of Black Women in Construction, I'm going to go to Esther and ask her to share her experience. But eventually, I began to invite my friends to lunch with my clients. And then I began to invite my clients to lunch with my billion-dollar clients. And my clients' businesses started going through the roof, like my business started going through the roof because of this relationship with my billion-dollar clients as a contractor. And then I thought, why don't we invite my client to lunch so I could benefit my client's client in a restaurant with our members? Well, Esther came on board last year, January,
Yes.
actually right before COVID. Actually, right before COVID. Now I'm going to use this as an example of the power of the imagination. And that was the reason why I wanted to explain to our audience the difference. Remember now, the author says that the imagination, your imagination, and Galen teed it up with a story about Iverson and a story about the quote. What are you saying to yourself? And I challenge you to naturally get the book, A Daily Date with Yourself, but write what you're saying in a place that you can go back. But even if you don't go back and read it, let the universe know what your thoughts and ideas are. And it's amazing how the universe will bring to you that which you desire, but only if you know what it looks like. So I'm reading the chapter and I'm thinking about this story about Charles Schwab. And I said, well, listen, I can do the same thing. Just because I'm small don't mean I have to think small because I am a small business. I can think large and grow richer with a $1 billion idea. So COVID came and we didn't miss a beat. We took that $1 billion luncheon that we were doing in person once a month in the construction industry, each month a different industry, whether it was aviation one month or transportation the next month or healthcare the next month or facilities or water, transit, every month a different industry. And then Dr. Lambert shows up and got right involved. So my question to you, I just teed it up, Esther. So now my question to you, using the power of, again, we took my creative imagination, this idea that God blessed me with, a $1 billion luncheon, and I took the idea of the synthetic imagination, which I took something that already existed, a luncheon. I took something that already existed, $1 billion opportunities called the master plan and construction, and I married the two and I created a different mindset shift of the imagination. I need to sit there for just a moment and make sure we're understanding the power of the mind. Not because I'm Black, not because I'm a female, not because I'm a small business. I just am learning how to use these principles and how to think as I am growing richer. So, my question to you in that long dialogue, Dr. Lambert, because I want to set it up for you to share your experience when you came on board with us, first in person, because when you came to the meeting, we had just had the luncheon in Atlanta. When you came to Atlanta, you were at the luncheon in Atlanta, I believe.
Yes, I was.
And we had the $1 billion luncheon where we had the $8 billion of transit. We had the $16 billion of Georgia Department of Transportation, right? And we had all of them for lunch at the Embassy Suites in Atlanta. And this is where I met Esther at our $1 billion luncheon event in Atlanta. So my question to you is, what impact did the power of this imagination have on you as you looked at what's possible for your life and your business with this experience?
Well, and one of the things you just explained, now you moved beyond the synthetic imagination to the creative imagination in this process. And one of the things that it's done for myself as well as my associates in the National Association of Black Women in Construction is it has exposed us to not just people in our geographic location. We have taken it from just a South Florida event to a national event. And so that exposes us to clients from all across the country. This past week, and you and I were in conversation with the CEO in charge of financing this large $7 billion project at the JFK airport. And so that basically exposes us to opportunities that we otherwise would not have been exposed to. And also, it has helped so many of us to get comfortable with meeting people who we never would have met, and meeting them via some kind of virtual technology that we did not even dream of using. And so it has basically made our ability to influence our ability to sell our services much more comfortably than we otherwise would have. And that brings me to this other practice that we're doing from the greatest salesman in the world by Augmentino. So it's elevated our ability to make sales and to feel comfortable doing it.
Thank you. Back to you, Peter.
Absolutely. Such a great story. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Esther. And Esther, I want to come right back to you. It's been such a robust conversation, and thank you so much for joining us this morning. But now we want you to actually sell and promote your services a little bit more deeply. Tell the audience how they can stay in touch with you, or maybe even for that matter, how to get connected with you moving forward.
Oh, sure. Of course, I'm on LinkedIn, Esther Lambert. My website is www.corporaserve.com. My phone number is on my website, 954-701-2454. I am on all the other social media, Facebook, Instagram, and you can reach me also on NABWIC. I'm now the vice president of the National Association of Black Women in Construction. So I am available to work on projects that are. I also have a book published, Critical Success Factors Related to Capital Construction Projects. So I am an expert in the area. I have clients all across South Florida, and who I have formed an excellent relationships with, who I have influenced on the success of their projects. So, like I said, I'm everywhere on social media as well as my website.
Essentially, what Esther has just said is, if you can't find her, you haven't been looking.
Something like that.
Good stuff, Esther. Thank you so much for sharing your information with us. Galen, some good stuff has been dropped today. Let us know what you think, and then how we can stay in touch with you, sir.
Yeah, this has been a great conversation. And I'm going to go back to something that we talked about at the very, very top, and that is the dadgum title of the book, Think and Grow Rich. So many people want to just be rich. Some people want to think and be rich, right? But the real power comes from the growth. And unfortunately, growth never comes in comfortable places.
Yeah.
You've got to be willing to do some things different in order to grow, to be a different person than you are today. And if you're really ready to take on that growth challenge, I invite you to give me a call, reach out to me. My name is Galen Bingham. I'm CEO of Kill Global Coaching and Consulting. And let me talk a little bit about what a kill is, why I named it Kill. Kill is an oven that bakes up to 3,000 degrees, and it's used for either melting steel or baking pottery. And it takes that kind of heat in order to change from one element to another form. And if you're ready to change into a different form, into a form that you were supposed to be, reach out to me, give me a call, and let's have a conversation. You can reach me at Galen at KILN globalcoaching.com. This has been an incredible conversation, as every conversation seems to be, and I am looking forward to hearing from our guests.
Good stuff there, Galen. Ann McNeil, the master builder, such robust conversation. What is your biggest takeaway, and how can we remain in touch with you?
Well, first I want to just share with our dedicated followers, Laverne, Dorsey, thank you, Imelda, always, Doretha, Dennis. We have some Facebook users that have not connected yet with StreamYard, and so we're going to ask you to please go over to StreamYard.com and just register. And Tia, if you can put the StreamYard link in the chat for our followers to register with us, and that would allow StreamYard to place your name in the on the screen, so that when you are chatting with us, we can call you by name. And I just want to just make sure that all of our listeners and our followers now and in the future know how much we really appreciate them. And one of them said, think and transform every area of your life. And those of you that are saying good morning, we appreciate it. And like I said, keep saying Imelda, because Jada, all of you that join us every single Saturday, Tashana, we want you to know how much we really, Aida, really appreciate all of you. And I think that the imagination, whether synthetic or creative factors that we're all using, even to create this program. I mean, a lot of people have read this book, but that's it. But when you really allow it, as we talked about today, to read you in a creative way, and really sit with it and join us as a mastermind group, or create your own group. If you're interested in creating a mastermind group of your own, you can join us over at the International Masterminders.com website and let us hear from you. And we can have that conversation. But again, my name is Ann McNeil, and I am the Master Builder, helping you to build a stronger and wealthier business and life, and now communities as a contractor. And you can reach me at annmcneil.com. But I would also encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube channel at Ann McNeil, and follow us on this program from week to week. And I've already placed in the chat, Tia, if you help me with that, the book, A Daily Date with Yourself, and have a place where you're actually able to take these thoughts, these creative thoughts that you're having, and actually have a place where you can write them in a systematic way where you can eventually act upon them. So thank you so very much for that, Peter.
Good stuff there, Ann McNeil. Such a, again, robust conversation. Esther, can't thank you enough. My name, again, folks, is Dr. Peter A. James. I am the high performance coach, helping you to shift your mindset. You can find me on any social media platform at Dr. Peter A. James. That's at DrPeterAJames, or at shiftyourmindset.com. Esther, before I go to you for any final thoughts for our audience, the thing that resonated the most with me was, before you have conversations with others, you're having a conversation with yourself. And so for those of you who are watching and listening, what types of conversations are you having with yourself? What types of imaginative conversations are you having with yourself? And it's important to reflect on that a little bit. And if it's not positive, upbuilding, lofty imagination conversations, perhaps you need to switch your dialogue up a little bit. Esther, any parting thoughts for our audience?
Sure. My parting thought is, don't let anyone define who you are. Define yourself. Use your imagination, and represent yourself. I think about our current president, not to be political, where everyone thought that he was ready to go off into the sunset, and here he is, marshaling the country through one of the biggest crises that we've ever had. So represent yourself, and it's never over until it's over. So as long as there's life, there is something for us to do and for us to continue using our imagination to create.
Good stuff, Esther. Again, thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Think and Grow Rich Mastermind Live. Ladies and gentlemen in the audience, thank you also for joining us. Stay tuned every week on the same time, same channel, Facebook Live, YouTube Live. Come to StreamYard and check in with us. And please stay connected. Please stay connected, because this mastermind thing is real. Our annual accountability meeting is real, and we look forward to seeing you there soon. Take care.